I said, get out, you filthy vagrant! Rachel Morrison's voice exploded through the pristine restaurant. You think you can just waltz into my establishment? She loomed over Darius Johnson like a predator, her face twisted with disgust. The 42-year-old black man remained seated, his calm demeanor only fueling her rage. Ma'am, I'm a paying customer. Paying? Rachel's laugh was venom. With what? Food stamps? She snatched coins from the table and hurled them at his face. Keep the change, boy. Buy yourself some decent clothes. Darius slowly collected coins from the spreading puddle. 12 diners gasped, phones rising like weapons. The kitchen staff watched in horror. Rachel's clipboard pressed against her chest. Armor for the righteous. Have you ever witnessed such blatant cruelty that justice felt like the only option? 2:49 p.m. 8 minutes until board meeting. The restaurant fell into that peculiar silence that follows a public humiliation. Darius dried his hands with deliberate care, each movement measured against the storm brewing around him. Rachel paced behind him like a caged animal, her authority intoxicated by the audience. Sir, the word dripped condescension. I need you to understand something about this establishment. She stepped closer, invading his personal space by exactly 18 inches. We serve a certain clientele here. Her voice rose 40% louder than necessary, a masterclass in public shaming. Air quotes framed the word sir like quotation marks around a lie. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at that chicken joint down the street. More your speed. Jessica Martinez looked up from her corner booth, fork suspended halfway to her mouth. The 28-year-old influencer had 847,000 Instagram followers and a nose for viral content. Her thumb swiped to Instagram Live. Y'all are not going to believe what I'm witnessing right now at Meridian Bistro. The viewer count jumped from 1,200 to 3,400 in 60 seconds. Darius checked his phone discreetly. 2:52 p.m. Board meeting in 5 minutes. A text from his assistant glowed on the screen. Conference room ready. Investors arriving. Listen, friend. Rachel's tone could freeze water. I've been managing restaurants for 12 years. I know trouble when I see it. Her eyes swept his appearance with theatrical disgust. That cheap polyester sweater, those knockoff jeans. You're either here to cause problems or beg for handouts. She gestured toward other patrons. Look around. See anyone else dressed like they raided a thrift store? What Rachel didn't notice was the Patek Philippe watch on his wrist. $85,000 retail, worn with the casual indifference of generational wealth. Or the American Express Centurion card glimpsed briefly when he'd reached for his wallet. The first-class boarding pass from yesterday's flight to Atlanta still protruded from his back pocket. And certainly not the Hermes leather portfolio resting against his leg containing documents marked Johnson Restaurant Group, LLC. Michael! Rachel snapped her fingers at a server. Please escort this gentleman out. He's making our respectable guests uncomfortable. Michael, a college student working for tips, shifted nervously. Ma'am, I don't think... That wasn't a request. Rachel's voice could cut glass. Darius spoke quietly. I'd like to speak with the owner. Rachel's laugh echoed through the dining room. Honey, the owner doesn't deal with situations like this. That's what management is for. She tapped her name tag with mock pride. And management says you need to leave. Now. At table 7, an elderly couple whispered urgently. The woman clutched her purse tighter. At table 12, a young professional couple filmed discreetly, their phones angled to capture the confrontation. 3 businessmen at the bar exchanged smirks, one making a comment about knowing your place. In the kitchen, 2 cooks peered through the pass-through window, their faces etched with concern. Jessica's live stream exploded with comments. This is 2025 and this is still happening? Someone find out what restaurant this is. Boycott Meridian Bistro. Recording everything for evidence. The viewer count hit 8,400. Marcus Brooks, food blogger behind the Real Foodie Voice with 156,000 followers, walked through the front door for his scheduled 3 p.m. review. He immediately recognized the tension, his journalistic instincts kicking in. His phone started recording. Rachel sensed her moment slipping. The crowd was turning, phones multiplying like digital antibodies. She needed to end this quickly, decisively. You know what? Her voice rose another octave. I'm calling security. She pulled out her phone with theatrical flourish. We don't tolerate vagrants harassing our customers. 2:54 p.m., 3 minutes until meeting Darius received another text. Mr. Johnson, should we delay the board meeting? Legal team is standing by. The message notification seemed to embolden Rachel. She glimpsed the screen, likely assuming it was some legal aid service or social worker. Oh, calling your lawyer? She practically cackled. What's he going to do, sue us for discriminating against the dress code? She pointed at the exit with a dismissive hand gesture that could have been choreographed for maximum insult. There's the door, sir. Use it before this gets ugly. The elderly woman at table 7 finally found her voice. This is disgraceful. Rachel beamed, misreading the comment's target. Thank you, Mrs. Whitmore. At least someone appreciates maintaining standards. But Mrs. Whitmore was staring at Rachel with undisguised horror. The restaurant phone rang. Melissa Parker, the 22-year-old hostess, answered with trembling hands. Meridian Bistro, how may I? Her face went pale. Hold on, please. Jessica's live stream reached 12,000 viewers. Comments flooded faster than she could read. Get her name. Expose this racist. Where is this restaurant? Marcus Brooks uploaded his first video clip to TikTok. Racist restaurant manager exposed. This is happening right now. Views, 1,200 and climbing. Darius stood slowly, water still dripping from his clothes. The movement was fluid, controlled, like a panther preparing to strike, but his voice remained steady, almost conversational. Ma'am, are you absolutely certain you want to call security? Rachel's confidence faltered for exactly half a second. Something in his tone, his posture, the way he held himself despite her assault. It didn't match her narrative, but she was too far in to retreat now. Dead certain, boy. 2:55 p.m., 2 minutes remaining. The restaurant's back office door swung open with the force of approaching cavalry. Derek Wilson emerged, his assistant manager badge catching the overhead lights like a shield. At 41, he carried himself with the swagger of someone who'd never been told no by anyone who mattered. Rachel, what's the situation here? His voice boomed across the dining room, designed to intimidate. Vagrant refused to leave, Rachel replied, her confidence restored by reinforcements. Claims he wants to speak to ownership. She said the last word like a punchline. Been harassing customers, demanding free food, typical sob story. Derek sized up Darius with the practiced eye of a bouncer. Simple clothes, wet from the spilled water, coins still scattered at his feet. The math was simple in Derek's world. Poor plus black plus persistent equaled trouble. Sir, you need to exit immediately or we'll call security. He pulled out his phone like a weapon. This is your final warning. We don't negotiate with freeloaders. Darius remained seated, his posture unchanged. I'm not freeloading, I'm a customer. Customer? Derek snorted. Customers pay their bills and leave tips. They don't sit around begging for handouts. He gestured at the scattered coins. What's next? Asking for our leftovers. 2:56 p.m., 1 minute remaining. The front door chimed and 2 security guards entered with the confidence of men who knew their purpose. Big Jim towered at 6'4" and 280 pounds. His private security uniform stretched tight across his chest. Tony, shorter but wiry, wore the casual clothes of an off-duty police officer moonlighting for extra cash. Is this the troublemaker? Big Jim's voice could move furniture. He's been harassing customers for 15 minutes, Rachel lied smoothly, her story evolving with each retelling. Demanding money, making threats, refusing to leave when asked politely. I never made any threats, Darius said quietly. That's what they all say, Tony chimed in, his police training evident in his aggressive stance. Look, buddy, you can walk out on your own 2 feet or we can help you. Your choice. Jessica's live stream peaked at 23,000 viewers. The comments became a waterfall of rage. Call the police on the real criminals. This is what systemic racism looks like. Someone docks this restaurant. Get his name so we can help him. #Meridian Bistro racism started trending locally within minutes. Screenshots flooded Twitter and Facebook. A news intern at Channel 7 monitoring social media feeds sent an urgent message to the newsroom. Potential story developing at downtown restaurant. Discrimination incident going viral. 25K plus watching live. Marcus Brooks uploaded his 45-second TikTok clip with the caption, Racist restaurant manager exposed. This is happening right now. The video hit 50,000 views in 3 minutes, with comments pouring in from across the country. Additional food bloggers and local influencers alerted by social media began arriving outside the restaurant. Word was spreading through the city's social justice networks like wildfire. 2:57 p.m. meeting should have started. Darius found himself in the eye of a hurricane. Rachel stood directly in front of him, arms crossed like a fortress, her face flushed with righteous anger. Derek flanked his right side, phone ready to dial 911, recording everything for evidence. Big Jim blocked the exit with the casual efficiency of a human wall. Tony's hand rested on his radio, ready to call in backup from his police contacts. 12 restaurant patrons had abandoned any pretense of eating. Half held phones like digital weapons, recording every word, every gesture. The other half huddled in whispered conversations, some looking ashamed, others nodding approval at the management's tough stance. "You have 30 seconds to leave voluntarily," Derek announced, checking his watch with theatrical precision. "Or we're calling this in as trespassing, disturbing the peace, and possibly theft." "Theft?" Darius raised an eyebrow. "Those coins didn't pay for a full meal," Rachel said with vicious satisfaction. "Dine and dash is a crime in this city." "This is a respectable establishment," Derek added, his voice rising for the phones. "We serve senators, judges, business leaders, people who matter. We can't have just anyone wandering in off the street." The elderly woman at table 7, Mrs. Whitmore, stood abruptly. "This is absolutely disgusting." She threw her napkin on the table and walked toward Darius with the determination of someone who'd lived through actual history. "Sir, I am so sorry. This is not who we are. This is not who America is supposed to be." Rachel spun on her like a weather vane in a hurricane. "Mrs. Whitmore, please return to your seat. We're handling this according to company policy." "Company policy?" The 70-year-old woman's voice could strip paint. "Your policy is to humiliate paying customers? To throw money at human beings like they're animals?" She pulled out her phone with arthritic but determined fingers. "I'm calling the Better Business Bureau, and the newspaper, and Channel 7, and anyone else who will listen." The tide was turning, and Rachel felt it like quicksand beneath her feet. More diners were standing, murmuring among themselves. The young professional couple at table 12 approached with their phones recording. "Excuse me," the woman said to Darius, her voice gentle but firm. "Are you all right? Do you need us to call someone? A lawyer? Family?" "He needs to call a taxi," Rachel snapped, but her voice cracked slightly. The authority was leaking out of her performance like air from a punctured tire. A businessman from the bar area shouted, "Just throw him out already! Some of us have real jobs to get back to." But his comment was drowned out by competing voices. "Leave him alone! This is disgusting! Someone call the real police! Get their names, all of them!" The restaurant had become a battleground, with Darius at the center, calm, unmoved, almost serene amid the chaos swirling around him. Darius pulled out his phone with deliberate calm. "I understand your concern about maintaining standards." His voice cut through the chaos like a conductor quieting an orchestra. "Before you make any calls, I'd like you to call this number." He turned the screen toward Rachel and Derek. Number displayed. Johnson Restaurant Group, LLC, Executive Assistant. Rachel scoffed, but sweat beaded on her forehead despite the air conditioning. "We're not calling your lawyer, friend. Nice try with the fake company name." "Not my lawyer," Darius said quietly. "My employee." The words hung in the air like smoke from a gunshot. Derek laughed, too loudly, too forced. "Right. And I'm the governor of California." "Johnson Restaurant Group? What's next? You own McDonald's, too." But something in Darius's tone made Big Jim step back slightly. Tony's hand moved away from his radio. The man's calm was unnatural, unsettling. Most people facing this kind of pressure would be shouting, pleading, or backing down. Instead, Darius stood like a man holding all the cards. 2:58 p.m. His phone buzzed with another message. "Board members asking about delay, legal team standing by. Should we start without you?" The restaurant phone rang again. Melissa, the hostess, answered with shaking hands. "Meridian Bistro, how may I—" Her eyes widened. "Hold on." She covered the mouthpiece and called out, Rachel, there's a call for you. Says it's about the owner, something about Mr. Johnson. Rachel's irritation flared like a struck match. Not now, Melissa. Can't you see we're dealing with a situation? She says it's urgent. About Mr. Johnson and some kind of meeting that was supposed to start. The dining room fell silent except for the kitchen's mechanical hums and Jessica's whispered live stream commentary. The name hung in the air, common enough to be coincidental, specific enough to be unsettling. Derek forced another laugh, but his voice sounded hollow. Johnson? What a coincidence. Must be some other Johnson. Rachel's clipboard trembled almost imperceptibly in her hands. Tell whoever it is that we're busy. Management doesn't take random calls during business hours. 2:59 p.m. The silence stretched like a taut wire ready to snap. Jessica's live stream reached 31,000 viewers, the comments moving too fast to read. Marcus Brooks started his third TikTok video, sensing something monumental about to unfold. Darius calmly opened his Hermes portfolio, a detail everyone had overlooked in the chaos. The leather was butter soft, clearly expensive, but Rachel and Derek were too intoxicated by their own authority to notice. He extracted a single document and placed it face down on the nearest table. Rachel, Derek, I'd like you to look at this. His voice carried a new weight now, like a judge about to deliver a verdict. The restaurant held its collective breath. He flipped the document over. Meridian Bistro, Deed of Ownership Owner, Darius Johnson Johnson Restaurant Group, LLCA acquired, March 15, 2023. Rachel's clipboard clattered to the floor like a gavel dropping. The sound echoed through the stunned silence. Derek's mouth opened, but no words emerged. His phone slipped from nerveless fingers. Big Jim looked confused, his certainty evaporating like steam. He stepped backward instinctively. Tony reached for his radio, then stopped mid-motion, his police training warring with the impossible reality before him. I bought this restaurant 2 years ago, Darius said quietly, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade through silk. Today was supposed to be my first unannounced visit. The words hit the room like a physical force. At table 7, Mrs. Whitmore gasped audibly, her hand flying to her chest. At table 12, the young couple stopped filming, their phones forgotten as they stared in disbelief. At the bar, the three businessmen's smirks evaporated instantly, replaced by expressions of dawning horror. In the kitchen, heads disappeared from the pass-through window as staff scrambled to process what they'd just witnessed. Jessica's live stream exploded. Oh my God, y'all, he owns the restaurant! The black man owns the whole restaurant! The comment section became a digital stampede. Plot twist of the century. Rachel about to be unemployed. This is better than Netflix. Karma is real. I am screaming. Rachel's face cycled through emotions like a broken traffic light. Confusion, denial, recognition, terror. Her voice emerged as a whisper. Mr. Johnson, you weren't on the schedule. No, Darius replied, his tone conversational. I wasn't. Derek found his voice, panic bleeding through every syllable. Sir, there's been a terrible misunderstanding, a communication breakdown. If you had known what? Darius interrupted gently. That I own the building? That I sign your paychecks? Derek stammered. We would have. The protocols are different for what, Derek? For people who look like me? The question hung in the air like an accusation. Rachel tried to salvage the unsalvageable. Mr. Johnson, I was just protecting the restaurant's image. Standard operating procedures. You have to understand, we get all kinds of people. Her voice trailed off as she realized what she'd just said. All kinds of people. Darius repeated slowly. Like me. The ice in his voice could have frozen the Mediterranean. Marcus Brooks's newest TikTok video went live. Restaurant owner reveals identity after racist treatment, Part 3. Views climbed exponentially, 10K, 25K, 50K in minutes. But Darius wasn't finished. He checked his phone. 3:01 p.m. Board meeting officially late. Rachel, do you know what today's board meeting was about? She shook her head, unable to speak. We were voting on whether to keep current management or replace the entire team. He reached into his portfolio again and produced a second document. Meridian Bistro, Management Review, Recommendation, Complete Staff Overhaul, Effective Date, Today's Date, Status, Pending Board Approval. Derek's knees nearly buckled. Mr. Johnson, please, we can explain. Explain what? That you threw coins at your employer? That you called security to remove the man who pays your salary? That you lied to these officers about my behavior? Big Jim and Tony exchanged glances, both realizing simultaneously that they'd just threatened to forcibly remove a restaurant owner from his own establishment. Tony's police instincts kicked in. This was about to become a lawsuit with their names on it. Both security guards quietly began moving toward the exit. The restaurant phone rang again. Melissa approached with trembling steps. Mr. Johnson, your assistant is on line 1. She says the investors are asking about the delay and the lawyers want to know if they should prepare the termination paperwork. The words termination paperwork hit Rachel and Derek like physical blows. Tell her I'll be right there, Darius said calmly. Then, turning to Rachel, unless there's anything else you'd like to say to me? Every customer in the restaurant now realized they'd witnessed a complete power reversal. The man they'd watched being humiliated, degraded, and threatened was actually the person with ultimate authority over everything they'd just witnessed. Kitchen staff slowly emerged from hiding to peer through the doorway, their faces mixing relief with anticipation. Jessica's live stream reached 38,000 viewers as word spread through social media like wildfire. Screenshots were being shared across every platform. Local news vans were already en route. Food bloggers throughout the city were republishing the videos, adding their own commentary about justice served and assumptions destroyed. Rachel made one last desperate attempt. Mr. Johnson, we have policies about, you have to understand, we see all kinds of... There's that phrase again, Darius said, his voice carrying the quiet authority of absolute power. All kinds of people, like me. The silence that followed was deafening. At that moment, everyone in Meridian Bistro understood that they'd just witnessed something extraordinary, a complete reversal of assumed power, captured live and broadcast to tens of thousands of viewers. The coins Rachel had thrown at Darius still lay scattered on the floor around his feet, a perfect metaphor for the shattered assumptions littering the restaurant. 3:03 p.m. Darius opened his portfolio with the methodical precision of a surgeon preparing for operation. He extracted financial reports, legal documents, and performance metrics, weapons forged from data and sharpened by corporate law. Rachel, since you're so concerned about our clientele, let's review some numbers. The word "our" landed like a physical blow. Rachel flinched visibly. He spread the first document across the table. Meridian Bistro, quarterly financial report. Monthly gross revenue, $340,000. Annual revenue, $4.1 million. Profit margin, 23%. His finger traced the numbers with clinical detachment. Industry average is 15%. We outperform 90% of comparable establishments. Derek swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing like a fishing lure. Customer satisfaction, 4.2 out of 5 stars based on 628 reviews. Average ticket price, $47 per person. Return customer rate, 68%. Each statistic fell like a hammer blow. Those are exceptional numbers for this market segment. He looked directly at Derek. What percentage of our customers would you estimate are people of color? Derek's mouth moved soundlessly, like a fish drowning in air. I don't really track demographics. 37%, Darius said flatly. They generate 42% of our revenue. Our highest spending customers are African-American professionals earning over $150,000 annually, Latino business owners, and Asian entrepreneurs who regularly bring clients here for business dinners. He let that sink in before continuing. The certain clientele you've been protecting, Rachel, they actually spend less per visit and complain more about prices. Our diverse customer base supports higher menu prices without complaint because they recognize quality service. Or they did, until today. Rachel's face had gone the color of old paper. Darius produced another document, this one thick with legal language. Employee Handbook, Section 4, Discrimination Policy. Let me read you something you both signed when you were hired. His voice carried the authority of scripture being recited. Any employee engaging in discriminatory behavior based on race, ethnicity, religion, gender identity, sexual orientation, or economic appearance will face immediate termination and potential legal action. Johnson Restaurant Group maintains zero tolerance for discrimination in any form. He looked up. Do you remember signing this, Rachel? Yes, but I wasn't discriminating. Rachel's voice cracked like an adolescent boy's. I was just maintaining standards. Let's examine those standards. Darius pulled out his phone and opened a voice recording app. For the record, what did you mean when you told me I'd be more comfortable at the diner down the street? The question hung in the air like smoke from a fired gun. That wasn't, I meant... Rachel's stammering filled the silence. You referred to me as boy, a term with specific historical context when used by white people toward black men. You suggested I don't belong among your certain clientele. You physically threw money at me while calling me a filthy vagrant. You deliberately spilled water on me and laughed about it. Darius's voice never rose above conversational level, but each word carried the weight of an avalanche. All captured on live stream with 42,000 witnesses and climbing. He turned to Jessica, who sat frozen with her phone still broadcasting. Miss, you've been recording this interaction from the beginning? Yes, sir. Over 42,000 people watching live. It's been shared thousands of times already. Jessica's voice was barely a whisper. Would you mind sending that recording to our legal department for documentation purposes? Of course, Mr. Johnson. Should I end the stream now? Not yet. Transparency is important. Marcus Brooks stepped forward, his food blogger credentials now seeming inadequate for the magnitude of the story unfolding. I've got everything from multiple angles, posted to TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and my blog. Combined views are approaching 800,000 across platforms. Local news stations are already calling me for the footage. Excellent. Documentation is crucial in discrimination cases. Darius pulled out his phone and made a call on speaker. The ringtone echoed through the silent restaurant. Johnson Restaurant Group Legal Department, this is Sandra. Sandra, it's Darius. I need you to review the Meridian situation immediately. Yes, sir, we've been monitoring social media. The incident is trending nationally now. Do we have comprehensive evidence? Video from multiple angles, audio recordings, 40,000 live witnesses, and documented policy violations. Both state and federal discrimination statutes apply. I'll prepare the standard termination documents and begin damage control protocols. Should I contact our crisis management firm? Not yet. Let's handle this internally first, but prepare for media inquiries. He ended the call and looked at Rachel and Derek with the expression of a man calculating profit margins. Derek found his voice, desperation bleeding through every syllable. Mr. Johnson, there's been a terrible misunderstanding. If we had known who you were... Stop. Darius held up his hand. That sentence tells me everything I need to know. If we had known who I was, so your behavior changes based on someone's perceived status? Derek's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Let me be clear. I don't want respect because I own this restaurant. I want respect because I'm a human being. The fact that you can only offer apologies after learning my identity proves the discrimination was intentional. 3:05 p.m. Rachel, Derek, here are your options. Choose carefully. Your futures depend on it. He spoke with the calm precision of a surgeon explaining a terminal diagnosis. Option A, immediate resignation. Handwritten letter of apology to be published on our social media accounts and read at our next company-wide meeting. Forfeiture of final month's salary, $8,400 combined, to the local NAACP chapter. Signed non-disclosure agreement preventing you from discussing this incident publicly with specific clauses about social media posts. Rachel's clipboard trembled in her hands like a leaf in a hurricane. Option B, termination for cause, no severance pay, no positive references, legal action for violating company discrimination policy. Public statement on our website and social media detailing specific reasons for dismissal. Permanent ban from employment at any Johnson Restaurant Group property. Derek's face had gone gray as concrete. Option C. We can discuss this with corporate attorneys and see where workplace discrimination lawsuits typically settle these days. I should warn you, we have excellent lawyers and unlimited resources for litigation. He leaned back in his chair, completely relaxed. Some context for your decision. This establishment holds a $2.3 million liability insurance policy. Discrimination lawsuits in this city average $240,000 in settlements, but awards can reach 7 figures with video evidence this clear. The numbers hit Rachel like physical blows. Our legal team is Brennan, Caldwell & Associates, They specialize in employment law and have a 97% success rate. Last year, they secured a $1.8 million judgment against a hotel chain for similar discrimination. The name recognition was immediate. Brennan, Caldwell, and Associates were the sharks of employment litigation, the firm that had taken down 3 major corporations the previous year. Professional consequences, Darius continued conversationally. Restaurant industry networking is surprisingly small. Word travels fast about managers who create liability issues for their employers. Background checks for management positions are thorough these days. Google searches are forever. Rachel's breathing became shallow, rapid. Digital consequences? 45,000 people have now witnessed this interaction. Screenshots don't disappear. Search engines don't forget. Your names are already trending on multiple social media platforms. By tomorrow, this video will have millions of views. He pulled out another document. Johnson Restaurant Group, LLC. Corporate structure. This company owns 17 restaurants across 4 states: California, Nevada, Arizona, and Texas. Combined annual revenue, $73 million. We employ 1,200 people. Regional management conferences, industry trade shows, professional associations. Your behavior today affects my company's reputation in 4 major markets. Derek found his voice. Mr. Johnson, we had no idea. No idea of what? Does discrimination have consequences? Do your actions represent this company? That people of color might actually have power in corporate America? The questions hit like haymakers in a boxing match. I've been in this industry for 15 years. Started as a busboy, worked every position, earned my MBA from Wharton, built this company from nothing, and today, 2 of my own employees treated me like garbage based solely on my appearance. The personal revelation silenced the room completely. Darius stood and addressed the kitchen staff who had emerged to witness the confrontation. Anyone who witnessed this interaction, please know you're protected under our whistleblower policy. No retaliation for honest testimony about workplace discrimination. Your jobs are secure. He turned to Melissa, the hostess. Your professionalism during this situation has been noted positively in your personnel file. You'll receive a commendation and a raise, effective immediately. The young woman nearly collapsed with relief. 3:07 p.m. I'm waiting for your decision. You have 2 minutes. Rachel's voice emerged as a whisper. Mr. Johnson, I choose option A. Same, Derek croaked. Option A, please. Wise choice. Resignation letters handwritten now. Include specific acknowledgement of discriminatory behavior and unconditional apology. Security badges and keys on the counter. You have 10 minutes to clean out personal items from your lockers. He pulled out his phone again. HR department? We need interim management at Meridian immediately. Yes, the discrimination incident. Both managers have resigned. Send Maria from corporate and the diversity training coordinator as well. To Melissa. Contact facilities management. New locks were installed within 2 hours. Full security system review by end of business today. The restaurant had transformed into a corporate war room, with Darius as the commanding general executing a flawless victory. 3:15 p.m., the walk of shame. The back office door opened with the finality of a coffin lid. Rachel emerged first, clutching a small cardboard box against her chest like armor that had already failed. Her resignation letter, 3 pages of handwritten apologies, crinkled in Darius's jacket pocket. She walked through the dining room she'd ruled just minutes before. 12 pairs of eyes followed her journey from authority to exile. The silence was absolute except for the soft scrape of her heels against marble floors where coins still glittered, evidence of her earlier performance. Derek followed, his own box even smaller, his shame deeper. The 30-foot walk to the exit stretched like a mile through enemy territory. Neither spoke. Neither looked up. The door closed behind them with a sound like thunder in the distance. Spontaneous applause erupted from table 7. Mrs. Whitmore stood slowly, her weathered hands clapping with deliberate rhythm. Others joined, the young professional couple, the businessmen at the bar, even kitchen staff emerging from behind the counter. The sound filled the restaurant like rain after drought. 3:18 p.m. Digital wildfire. Jessica ended her live stream with 49,000 viewers watching. Y'all, I have never seen anything like this. Justice served in real time. Her final highlights package would be shared 1,200 times within the hour. The numbers told their own story. *## Meridian Bistro Justice trending nationally within 90 minutes. Asterisk Marcus Brooks's TikTok series. 1.4 million views and climbing. Asterisk local news vans arriving in the parking lot. Asterisk restaurant phone ringing nonstop with reservation requests. But Darius barely noticed the digital celebration. He was focused on something more important, making sure this never happened again. 3:22 p.m. Immediate action. Maria Santos arrived from corporate headquarters with the efficiency of a crisis response team. As director of operations for Johnson Restaurant Group, she'd seen her share of emergencies, but nothing quite like this. "Legal is monitoring social media," she reported, settling into the booth across from Darius. "PR wants to capitalize on the positive response. The board is scheduling an emergency meeting to discuss company-wide policy changes." Darius barely looked up from the documents he was reviewing. "Good. But we're not waiting for board approval. Changes start today." He'd been in the restaurant business long enough to know that momentum dies quickly. The public's attention would move to the next viral video within days. Real change required immediate implementation while people were still paying attention. 3:25 p.m., the technology solution. Within 2 hours, Darius had authorized the development of something unprecedented in the hospitality industry. A real-time discrimination reporting system that would revolutionize customer service accountability. "Every table gets a QR code with their receipt," he explained to the IT specialist who'd arrived from headquarters. "Customers can report incidents anonymously, upload photos or videos, and track resolution in real time." The app would include features that seemed like science fiction but were entirely possible. Asterisk GPS tracking showing exact restaurant location. Asterisk automatic escalation to ownership for bias reports. Asterisk corporate notification within 30 seconds of any complaint. Asterisk public dashboard showing response times and resolution rates. Asterisk integration with social media monitoring for sentiment analysis. If someone experiences what I experienced today, they'll have instant recourse. No more suffering in silence. 3:30 p.m. Emergency staff meeting. Darius gathered the remaining 15 employees in the main dining room. Servers, kitchen staff, hosts, bartenders, everyone who'd witnessed the morning's events and would shape the restaurant's future. "What happened today wasn't random," he began, his voice carrying the weight of experience earned through decades in the industry. "It was the result of systems that allowed discrimination to flourish in darkness." He looked around the circle of faces, young and old, representing half a dozen ethnicities and 3 generations of immigration stories. "I could have immediately revealed who I was, but then we would have learned nothing about what really happens when management thinks nobody important is watching. And that's the problem. Every customer is important." Carlos, the head chef who'd worked at Meridian for 8 years, raised a calloused hand. "Mr. Johnson, some of us were uncomfortable with what Rachel was doing, but we were afraid to speak up, afraid of losing our jobs. That fear dies today." Darius pulled out a document he'd been drafting. "New company policy. Any employee witnessing discriminatory behavior has not just the right, but the obligation to intervene. You'll be protected, supported, and rewarded for doing what's right." The policy included provisions that would become industry standard. Asterisk anonymous reporting hotline, monitored 24 hours daily. Asterisk legal defense fund for employees facing retaliation. Asterisk bonuses for staff who successfully intervene in discrimination incidents. Asterisk immediate investigation protocols with results published within 48 hours. 3:45 p.m. Community partnership. "We're not just changing internal policies," Darius continued. "We're changing how this restaurant relates to the community it serves." He outlined initiatives that would transform Meridian from a simple dining establishment into a community cornerstone. Every second Tuesday would feature free dinners for local civil rights organizations. The NAACP, Urban League, Latino Coalition, and Asian Pacific Fund would have standing reservations for their monthly meetings. "But we're going beyond symbolic gestures," Darius explained. "Within 6 months, 60% of our suppliers will be minority-owned businesses. We're not just talking about diversity, we're funding it. The partnerships would include produce from Latino-owned farms, bread from a Black-owned bakery, wine from women-owned vineyards, and flowers from an immigrant-owned greenhouse. Every purchase would support the community that supported the restaurant." 4 p.m. Educational transformation. This restaurant becomes a living classroom, Darius announced. Business schools will study our transformation. Hospitality students will intern here. We're not just serving food, we're serving change. Stanford Business School had already requested permission to develop a case study. 3 universities wanted to establish internship programs. A documentary crew was seeking access for a year-long project tracking the restaurant's evolution. Education prevents repetition, Darius explained. If our experience helps train the next generation of managers, then today's humiliation serves tomorrow's justice. 4:15 p.m. Staff empowerment. The most revolutionary change involved redistributing power within the restaurant hierarchy. Traditional management structures concentrated authority at the top, leaving frontline employees vulnerable to abuse from both customers and supervisors. Every employee can now override discriminatory decisions, Darius announced. If you see bias, you have authority to address it immediately. If you experience harassment, you have direct access to me, not through managers, not through HR, directly to ownership. He handed out business cards with his personal cell phone number. This line is monitored 10 minutes a day, 7 days a week. Use it when you need it. The psychological impact was immediate. Servers stood straighter. Kitchen staff made eye contact. The entire atmosphere shifted from fearful compliance to confident collaboration. 4:20 p.m. Physical environment changes. While policies address systemic issues, Darius understood that environment shaped behavior. Within 1 week, Meridian would undergo a complete cultural makeover. Artwork from local Black, Latino, and Asian artists would replace generic restaurant decor. The music playlist, curated by staff, would represent 12 different cultural traditions. A community bulletin board would showcase neighborhood minority-owned businesses. All are welcome signs would appear in English, Spanish, Mandarin, and American Sign Language, not as political statements but as business commitments to accessibility and inclusion. 4:25 p.m. Measuring success, traditional restaurant metrics focused exclusively on financial performance. Revenue, profit margins, customer satisfaction scores. Darius implemented additional measurements that would track dignity alongside dollars. Staff retention rates by ethnicity and gender. Incident report resolution times. Community partnership engagement levels. Social media sentiment analysis. Supplier diversity percentages. What gets measured gets managed, he explained. If we only track money, we only value money. But if we track respect, inclusion, and community impact, we create value that transcends profit. 4:30 p.m. Immediate results. The transformation's impact was measurable within hours. The restaurant's social media accounts gained 400 new followers. Local news stations requested interviews. Reservation calls increased by 60%, with callers specifically mentioning the Justice video. More importantly, 3 hospitality professionals submitted job applications wanting to work somewhere that stands for something. 2 local restaurants called asking about implementing similar policies. A hospitality trade magazine requested an interview about revolutionary management practices. Mrs. Whitmore approached as Darius reviewed the afternoon's developments. "Young man, I've been dining in this city for 70 years, she said, her voice carrying the authority of lived experience. I've never seen anything like what you accomplished today. Not just justice, education. You turned hatred into hope." She leaned closer, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "I'm bringing my bridge club next week. 12 women with serious spending power and even more serious opinions about how businesses should treat people." 4:35 p.m. Looking forward. As evening approached, Darius surveyed the transformed restaurant. The same physical space that had witnessed his humiliation now hummed with new energy. Diverse staff served diverse customers with genuine enthusiasm rather than fearful compliance. The coins from Rachel's assault had been collected and donated to the local Civil Rights Museum. In their place lay something more valuable, a business model where respect wasn't just policy, it was profit. The phone continued ringing with reservation requests. Social media mentions remained overwhelmingly positive, but the real victory was smaller and larger simultaneously. A teenage server confidently explaining menu options to elderly customers, kitchen staff joking freely with the front-of-house team, and an atmosphere where everyone, regardless of appearance or accent, felt genuinely welcome. Change had arrived at Meridian Bistro not through corporate mandate or legal requirement, but through the simple recognition that treating people with dignity was both morally right and economically smart. Tomorrow will bring new challenges. But tonight, justice prevailed. 1 week later, the transformation. Darius sat in booth 7, the same spot where Mrs. Whitmore had first stood up for him. Afternoon sunlight streamed through windows that had witnessed a moment of injustice transform into lasting change. The table held fresh orchids, a gift from the Korean Business Association, one of 12 community groups now partnering with Meridian. The lunch rush buzzed around him. Mixed conversations in English, Spanish, and Mandarin created a symphony of inclusion. Behind the bar, Maria Santos, the teenager who'd been too scared to speak up before, confidently trained 2 new hires on the restaurant's anti-discrimination protocols. "People keep asking why I didn't immediately reveal who I was," Darius said to the Chronicle reporter, adjusting her recording device. "The answer reveals everything about how change really works." He gestured toward the dining room where a black tech executive shared lunch with her elderly white mother, while at the next table, a Latino construction crew celebrated a completed project alongside their Asian American client. You can't fix what you can't see. Rachel and Derek weren't monsters. They were products of systems that taught them to judge worth by appearance. If I'd flashed my ownership papers immediately, they would have changed their behavior without changing their thinking. The reporter leaned forward. But surely you could have avoided the humiliation. Humiliation builds character when it leads to transformation. What happened to me happens to thousands of people every day. They just don't own the building. My privilege came with responsibility to use that moment for something bigger than personal satisfaction. The numbers tell the story. 6 months later, the results spoke louder than any speech. Meridian Bistro's revenue had grown 31%. Staff turnover dropped to 8%, the lowest in the company's history. Customer satisfaction scores reached 4.8 out of 5, with comments consistently praising the welcoming atmosphere and authentic respect for all customers. But Darius cared more about different metrics. "We track dignity now, not just dollars," he explained, pulling out his tablet. Anonymous monthly surveys ask staff whether they feel empowered to address bias. Results hover at 94% positive. Customer diversity has increased 40%, not because we marketed to different communities, but because word spreads when people feel genuinely welcomed. The ripple effects had exceeded every projection. 27 other restaurants adopted the Meridian model within 6 months. Johnson Restaurant Group received 847 job applications from hospitality professionals wanting to work somewhere with real values. Personal roots, universal principles. "My father drove city buses in Detroit for 32 years, Darius continued, his voice softening with memory. William Johnson never missed a shift, never complained about passengers who looked through him like furniture. My mother Dorothy cleaned office buildings until midnight, invisible to executives who couldn't be bothered to learn her name." He paused, watching a young black server confidently explain menu options to a family of tourists. "They taught me respect isn't earned through wealth or power. It's owed to every human being breathing. What happened here wasn't about revenge. It was about creating the workplace my parents deserved but never had. The personal had become universal. Harvard Business School now taught the Meridian Method in their leadership curriculum. The restaurant received visits from managers across the hospitality industry, studying how respect translates directly to profit." Beyond the building. The transformation extended throughout the neighborhood. 8 new minority-owned businesses had opened within 3 blocks. Property values increased 18%, but longtime residents benefited through a community land trust Darius helped establish. "Change spreads like ripples in water," he observed, watching pedestrians flow past windows. "When one business commits to dignity, others follow. When customers experience real inclusion, they demand it everywhere." Mrs. Whitmore had become an unofficial spokesperson, bringing friends from across the city to experience the restaurant that got it right. Her 73rd birthday party filled Meridian's private dining room with 3 generations celebrating together. The broader impact continued expanding. Netflix had greenlit a documentary following 12 restaurant transformations inspired by the Meridian model. University researchers were analyzing how viral justice moments create sustainable institutional change. Your role in the story. Darius turned directly toward the camera, speaking with the intimacy of a friend sharing crucial advice. Every viewer has power they haven't fully recognized. When you witness discrimination, and you will, your response matters more than you think. He outlined 3 principles anyone could follow. Document when safe. Your phone becomes a shield protecting victims and creating accountability. Share responsibly using hashtags that build movements, not just outrage. #JusticeMatters carries more weight than #angry. Vote economically. Research businesses before spending money. Support establishments with diverse leadership and inclusive policies. Leave reviews celebrating positive experiences. They influence more decisions than complaints. Challenge personally. Examine your own assumptions. Interrupt bias when you see it, even in casual conversations. Support colleagues facing discrimination. These small acts accumulate into cultural transformation. The bigger movement. This story represents thousands happening daily across America, Darius explained. Black voices, uncut documents, real people creating real change in their communities. The channel had grown to 2.3 million subscribers, featuring weekly stories of triumph, justice, and systematic progress. Episodes highlighted Black entrepreneurs, workplace victories, community organizing, and legal resources for discrimination victims. Subscribe because these voices deserve amplification. Share because your network includes people who need to hear these messages. Comment because your experiences add to our collective wisdom. Community conversation. Tell us your story, Darius invited. Share experiences with workplace discrimination. Describe how you handled bias situations. Recommend businesses doing inclusion right. Every comment creates dialogue that educates and empowers others. The comment sections had become support networks. Viewers shared job leads, legal resources, and moral encouragement. Business owners asked for guidance implementing inclusive policies. Students requested internship opportunities at values-driven companies. Your engagement transforms individual stories into community movements. Tomorrow starts today. Darius stood, walking to the window overlooking the bustling street. His reflection merged with the scene outside, a neighborhood where diversity had become prosperity, where inclusion had generated innovation. I bought this restaurant because I love hospitality, the ancient art of making strangers feel welcomed and valued. What happened here taught me something profound. The most powerful force against discrimination is expectation. He faced the camera directly. When we consistently expect better, demand better, and support better, we make discrimination impossible, not because we eliminate prejudiced people, but because we create systems where bias has consequences and inclusion has rewards. The camera pulled back, showing the full restaurant, diverse staff serving diverse customers in harmony that felt both natural and revolutionary. You just watched change happen in real time. Now you can create it in your world. Subscribe to join this movement. Share to expand our reach. Comment to add your voice to the conversation. His final words carried the weight of possibility. Justice isn't just about punishment, it's about transformation. And transformation starts with ordinary people doing extraordinary things in ordinary moments. Like choosing respect over assumptions, like expecting dignity for everyone, like believing change is possible, and acting like it's inevitable. Tomorrow's world depends on today's choices. What will you choose? Subscribe to Black Voices Uncut, where every story changes everything.
At Black Voices Uncut, we don't polish away the pain or water down the message. We tell it like it is because the truth deserves nothing less. If today's story spoke to you, click like, join the conversation in the comments, and subscribe so you'll be here for the next Uncut Voice.